Okay. Before we start the session, um, yeah, I'm streaming. Before I start the session, no one, everybody mute. I must indulge our viewers and introduce Mr. Ryan James.
Bless America, let I love stand beside her and guide her through the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, why we fall.
All right. Um, thank you for that. Um, so first, I would like to, before we call to order, I just want to let everybody know the reason that we are going to continue with a five-person session is because Mr. Garrett A. Walker has not been sworn in as a senator, meaning that there are only 9 senators, and a quorum would be consisted of 5 people. Um, so, with that, I call the session into order. And if would any senator like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I suppose not. So I'll go ahead and say it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we will move on to the calling of the roll. Senator Sterling. All right. Senator Lego Trooper. Senator Webby.
Present.
Senator Walsh is present. Senator Woodland.
Present.
Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis, are you present? If you're not talking, you can just type present in the chat. All right. Senator Novak. All right. Senator SVGTY. Okay. Senator Jacity. Senator Jacity. Senator Jacity, are you present? Senator Jacity in the chat has indicated that he is present. With 5 present and 4 absent, we do have a quorum. Actually, for the record, I'm going to be marking Angela's excuse because he's at a speech tournament. The others really have no excuse. So we will continue with the session. Now I will be presenting the agenda, and we will be voting to adopt it. First item on the agenda is S1143, the State of Emergency Act of 2017, introduced by Senator Jacity. Item number 2 is S1144, the Department of Defense New Jobs Act of 2017, presented by Senator Jacity. Item number 3 is S1145, the Revised Lawful Orders Act of 2017, proposed by Senator Terence Walsh. Item number 4 is H.R. 1115, the Amendment to the Senate Confirmations Act, proposed by Director Gatsby. Item number 5 is H.R. 1117, the Resignation Act of 2017, presented by Representative Charleston. And item number 6 is H.R. 1119, the Judiciary Expression Act of 2017, proposed by Representative Charleston. So we will now vote to adopt the agenda, and I will go ahead and call the roll. Senator Webby.
Aye.
Senator Walsh votes aye. Senator Woodland.
Aye.
Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis votes aye in the chat. Senator Jacity. If you can speak or type in the chat. Senator Jacity.
Aye.
All right. With that, the agenda is adopted, and we will now move on to the items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is S1143, the State of Emergency Act of 2017, presented by Senator J. City, and the floor is open for discussion. Does anyone request the floor? The author, maybe? Senator J. City, you don't request? Okie dokie. Um, with that, we will go ahead and move on to voting on the State of Emergency Act. And I will call the roll. Senator Webby.
Aye.
Senator Walsh votes aye. Senator Willand.
Aye.
Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis votes aye in the chat. Senator J. City. Senator J. City. It appears he's having technical difficulties. Yeah, he's having a glitch. All right, Senator J. City votes aye in the chat. With 5 in favor and none opposed, and none abstaining, the item passes. And we will move on to item number 2, which is the S1144, the Department of Defense New Jobs Act of 2017, proposed by Senator J. City. The floor is open for discussion. If the author would like to speak on the matter, he may do so. Senator J. City, can you hear me? Or am I just talking to myself? I suppose I'm talking to myself. So, with no one requesting, we'll now proceed to a vote.
Mr. President, I request the floor.
Sure, Senator Webby, you have the floor.
So I like this bill, and I think it's very well written, and it'll provide a lot of new needed variety to the Department of Defense, something that it doesn't really have specifically structured inside of it. My one concern, if any, is there's no really basis of appointing the positions of Deputy Undersecretary and Assistant Secretary of Defense when we see these like actual positions require Senate confirmation and requests from the Senate and consent. I like it. I'm just concerned about that factor. And I think it could be possibly something amended. But other than that, I will yield the floor, Mr. President, and direct you to the chat.
Okay. He says he can't hear. Okay. Sorry, we're just having a bit of
Mr. President,
yes.
can we motion to a what's the thing?
Recess?
Recess. That's the word.
Okay.
Can we have like a 5-minute recess so J City can fix his stuff?
Let's just take a recess until we figure it out. We don't have to set a time on it.
Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna take a quick recess to people in the stream, just so we can figure out what's going on with JCD's mic. So we'll go ahead and start now. Okay, the very short recess is over. We got everything figured out. So where were we? We were on the second bill, yes.
Yes.
All right, JCD, would you like to speak on the Department of Defense New Jobs Act?
No.
Okay, we will now, with that, proceed to a vote on the Department of Defense New Jobs Act. Um, Senator Webby,
Aye.
Senator Walsh votes aye. Senator Woodland.
Abstain.
Okay. Senator Anubis. He votes aye in the chat, and Senator JCD.
Aye.
All right. With 4 in favor and 1 abstaining, the item passes. Um, Meaning we will now move to. I'm trying to fix something. We will now move on to S1145, the Revised Lawful Orders Act, proposed by Senator Terence Walsh. I would like to yield, just for this act, to Senator Webby so I can request and speak on the bill.
All right. You have the floor, Mr. Walsh.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Um, Essentially, a couple of my colleagues, in the House, presented me with a lot of issues um, that they had with the original Lawful Orders Act, which didn't amend the proper section of the Criminal Offense and Punishment Act, and it didn't specify whether each crime was a misdemeanor or a felony. Since then, I have edited that, correcting um, both A, the correct section, and B, I have divided each section into whether they're a felony offense or whether or not they are a misdemeanor offense. Um, and essentially, these crimes are just these are things that uh, exist within real life and are not in the Criminal Offense and Punishment Act, and it would be good for us to have these laws, such as failure to identify if you don't tell an officer your username, failure to comply with a lawful order from an officer, exploiting, glitching, etc. So I've made the proper revisions to this legislation, and I ask for everyone's vote, and as well as everyone in the House, and I yield.
Does anyone request the floor? With that, we will proceed to a vote on S1145. Senator Webby votes aye. Senator Walsh.
Aye.
Senator Walsh votes aye. Senator Woodland.
Aye.
Senator Woodland votes aye. Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis votes aye in chat. Senator J. City.
Aye.
Senator J. City votes aye with 5 ayes, no nays, and 0 abstentions. The bill passes.
All right. Thank you, Senator Webby, for presiding very briefly while I spoke. We will now move on to item number 4, H.R. 1115, the amendment to the Senate Confirmations Act, presented by Director Gatsby, and the floor is open for any kind of discussion.
Motion to proceed.
Second the motion.
All right. We will now proceed to a vote. Senator Webby.
Aye.
I vote against. Senator Walsh votes against. Senator Woodland.
Abstain.
All right. Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis votes aye. Senator J. City.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right. With 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 abstained, the bill passes. And we will now move on to item number 5, H.R. 1117, the Resignation Act of 2017, proposed by Representative Charleston. Once again, I'd like to yield the floor, or yield the chair to Senator Webby in request.
You have the floor, Mr. Walsh.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. And just to clarify, this Resignation Act is in reference to a previous bill that I made called the Resignation Process Act, which set out the proper channel for resigning from an office and also stated that if you don't join the group within a certain period of time, then you don't take office or you've officially resigned your office. Most notably, this act was enforced in the case of Senator-elect Relly. He never really became a senator, um, but he did not join the group within a specified period of time. He had a personal incident, which is understandable, but because of that, he was not um, did not take office as a senator. Now, the bill that Representative Charleston has proposed repeals that act, pretty much restates everything I've said in my act, and removes the provision that states if you're not in the group for a certain period of time, then you officially resign. Personally, I think that if someone hasn't joined the group within, I believe, my act says 5 or 7 days, then I don't think that you should. I think that should be considered a resignation because of your lack of activity or caring to join the group. Um, so I'll be voting against this legislation simply because he did not include the portion that states um, that you officially resign your office after not being in the group for a certain period of time. And I urge others to vote against this legislation, and I yield.
I'd like to yield the chair back to Senator Walsh and request the floor, Mr. President.
Senator Webb, you have the floor.
I'm completely 100% in your corner, Senator Walsh. I feel exactly the same way you do. I also feel that some of the things written in this bill, especially where the guidelines is specifically having to write into a Roblox forum,
Yeah.
and there are other forms and uses of communication that this United States uses, and I feel limiting it to just a forum post is kind of irrelevant when a lot of the times it's easier to access on Google Docs, etc. Also, the fact that an appeal to your resignation has to go directly to the president, and I feel like there are, rather than going to the executive, something like this, where it's your oath of office and resigning from your oath of office should go to the judiciary just because of its role as a non-biased and non-partisan sect of our federal government, and having to speak to the president about your job is, while you can get his opinion from him, our job does not center around him. Our job, per Section 2 of the Constitution rather than Section 3, specifically says Congress first, and having to speak to him to be allowed to hold your job, especially if there are political biases there, it'll lead to conflict and something that should be rewritten. And I suggest, depending on how this election season goes, Representative Charleston rewrites if he wishes to repropose this bill. And that's just my 2 cents, and I yield the floor. Oh, I also recommend you guys vote nay. Now I'd like to yield the floor, Mr. President.
All right. Does anyone else request the floor? All right. With that, we will now proceed to vote on item number 5, the Resignation Act of 2017 proposed by Representative Charleston. We will now call the roll. Senator Webby.
Nay.
Senator Walsh votes nay. Senator Woodland.
Nay.
Senator Anubis. And Senator Jasity.
Nay.
All right. With 5 against and none in favor, none abstaining, the item number 5 has failed. And with that, we'll move on to the final item, H.R. 1119, the Judiciary Expression Act of 2017, proposed by Representative Charleston. And the floor is now open for discussion.
Mr. President, I'd like to request the floor.
You have the floor.
This is an interesting bill, and it's something I think causes a lot of discussion, not only in real life but on Roblox. We see a lot of the times judges being barred from giving their political beliefs, and I think on the basis that I said of having an unbiased judiciary is something that personally I believe this bill should should be voted down. However, there are some sections that I'm in agreement with. However, the overall um, picture of this bill, I just feel like it doesn't set forth. It'll set forth a negative precedent and a precedent that allows judicial bias coming from our courts and something that should not be allowed to happen. I do agree with the parts of free speech and such like that, and their objections on views pertaining to the country and in matters as a whole. I believe that people should have the right to their opinion, and it's not something I believe should be infringed upon. However, we've seen in cases, even with inside of the executive office, where agents inside of the SS aren't allowed to hold some political beliefs. People aren't able to speak in certain manners that are negative of this country simply because it's a not only a threat to national security, but it's something we can't infringe upon and create negative attitudes from the people they protect, especially in the Secret Service. And I think it's something that can easily be applied to the judicial branch, where we have judges and justices that are required to give their opinion. However, their opinions are whether something is fair or not. And in terms of constitutional fairness, we have to take light of the moments where how they have these perceived views may affect whether they are more conservative or liberal judges in terms of being more strict to the Constitution and believing more in that elastic clause of the Constitution. And I think the purpose of this bill, while good intention, is something that will not necessarily lead us down a negative path in this country, but it's something that we need to take light of and take hold of and recognize that the precedents that we've set in place as a body of the Senate and Congress as a whole is to ensure that our nation's judicial branch, one of the most important branches that provides these checks and balances to our country, is kept in a neutral and unbiased opinion. And while they should be allowed, I totally agree that to give their personal opinions, I still don't think that they should be given the ability to necessarily embody these opinions, if that makes sense. So with that, I believe we should vote nay on this bill, and I encourage my fellow senators and colleagues necessarily. And with that, Mr. President, I yield my time.
All right, we will now move on. If no one else would like to request, we will now move on to a vote on H.R. 1119, the Judiciary Expression Act of 2017. Senator Webby.
Nay.
Senator Walsh abstains. Senator Woodland.
Nay.
Senator Anubis. Oh, I'm probably looking in the wrong chat. Oh, no, he hasn't voted yet. Senator Anubis. Senator Anubis votes nay. Senator J. City.
Aye.
Senator J. City votes aye. All right, with 1 in favor, 3 opposed, and 1 abstain, the bill fails. And with that, we will now move on to closing statements. And with moving on to closing statements, I would like to briefly yield the chair to Senator Webby and request the floor.
You may have the floor, Senator Walsh.
Thank you. As a lot of you already know, this is going to be my last Senate session. I've announced that I wouldn't be running for re-election to the Senate, obviously because I'll be running with President Connor M. Green as his running mate. These past 2 months have been interesting, to say the least. We've passed, the Senate has passed over 18 bills that have become a law, which is, and I'm checking effective laws right now, that is the most in our country's history, which is honestly amazing. And I'm glad that I could have been a part of this. So I want to thank everyone that served in the Senate. with me for the past 2 months. There's been several. There's been lots of resignations, so there's been several people that served. Um, and I look forward to potentially serving as your vice president and continuing the job that I'm doing now in a different capacity. So thank you all, and I yield.
I'd like to yield the chair back to Senator Walsh and request the floor.
All right, Senator Webb, you have the floor.
I am more than proud to have served in this Senate body and this Congress with not only Senator Walsh, who's been an amazing president pro tempore, but he's a great man to work beside, and I hope to work beside him again next term in a different capacity, like he said. Not to paraphrase your words, but more or less. I'd also like to thank all the senators that have both left the Senate because of other reasons, like Senator Reed, Senator Blair / Kane / other names that he's going to change to. Senator Leo, a great friend of mine, serving in a very prestigious job as overseer now. All of the senators that have served in this body have done an amazing job, and senators like Senator Sterling, Woodland, and all them. I'd like to thank all of you guys personally for the work you guys have done and the amount of legislation we've able to successfully pass through both chambers, despite some differences in this new house. We've still been able to work just as efficiently and as effectively as we did in a democratically controlled house, and I'm extremely proud of the ability to have worked in such a bipartisan capability with our lower chamber. And I might die by the end of this term, but nonetheless, I'd like to just again thank all of you for graciously serving and being a part of this of history that we've made. And I can't think of any other words to describe how just successful we've done and the amount of work we've been able to do, and we've been able to come together on issues and work as equals. I'm slightly disappointed that Senator Senator Walker wasn't able to attend, as he is the chair, the new nominee of the Republican Party, and it's kind of disheartening to see in a senator that is running for such a prestigious position. But it's something that isn't to be expected, but we could see in the future. But on that note, I'd just like to thank all of you again, and thank you for the hard work, both from the executive branch and this amazing Congress that we've been able to serve in. And with that, Mr. President, I'd like to yield my time.
All right, Senator Webby, would you like to narrate Anubis's closing statement?
Senator Anubis, requesting the floor, says, Dan is the man with the rock, with the getcha, with the got. And Senator Anubis yields his time.
Teardrop. All right, Senator Pierce or Senator Woodland, do you guys request for a closing statement at our final session? Senator Woodland's typing. No, Mr. Lee, not request.
I mean, we can vote to let him talk.
No, he's just going to request like 4 times and control. Like, I request the floor.
Failed senator.
So, Senator Woodland, do you request for a closing? All right. So, with no one requesting, I motion for adjournment. I motion for adjournment.
I second the motion. I forgot to.
Yeah. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye. Nay.
All opposed.
Nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The session is adjourned. Let me get my
Goodbye.
hold on. Let me get my gavel.
Did you do those Mount Elementary favorites?
Okay, Jen.